Alright guys, tutorial of using bleach and also show you guys kind of my tips, how I've used it, how I've taught it, and stuff like that. Right now you can see that I have one that's finished. It's upside down right now, so that way you can see the one I'm going to work on right side up. But I also wanted to show you, again, like, hopefully by watching me you can see a little bit. So make sure that you have like a paper towel. And then I'm just going to be using this brush the whole time. It's a 3, but again, with your practice, whatever you were using, is going to be fine. And then I also have up the picture of the sphere that I wanted you guys to work with as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my brush in bleach. And I do tap off a little bit of the excess on it before I start putting it down. And first thing I'm going to do is just create a value scale. So I'm going to let that bleach, be on my brush pretty heavy. And I don't want this to be broken up. So I'm not going to re-dip it. I'm just going to keep working out that bleach as long as I can. And this will allow you to kind of see the effect. So really the first thing as you're working with bleach is try to see how long you can go without re-dipping your brush. So right now you can see that that area is still wet. Where there's less bleach, it's starting to dry basically. And I haven't even re-dipped my brush obviously. And you can see I still have a little bit on there. And that really is how you can create a value scale to start off with. Just by the first dip and putting it down, letting it dry, and then working all the way over. I'm going to let this obviously dry for a while. I do want to see what it's going to look like when I come back. You can see one right here that I did earlier where I had the bleach on my brush and I let it, again, fade out. Because you do want to see the black of the paper. Like, you should go from bleach, heavy bleach, to a little bit less bleach, a little bit less, and then finally where it basically talls off at the end. Same thing here. You guys can see that, and again, you can see how this is drying. It's going to look a little bit different. And you can see that, you will see some lines in here. And once again, totally fine with that. It's not a big deal at all. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to start working on my sphere. And the first thing I'm going to do, once again, I dip my brush in bleach. I do wipe off a little bit of excess so I don't have too much on there. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to find the lightest areas of my picture. So the lightest area first of my sphere is that area that's along the side. So the first place I want to put my bleach down every single time is where those lightest areas are. So that's a really light area. Again, kind of coming all the way from the shadow toward the bottom, all the way to the top. So I'm going to let my bleach just sit there for a minute. And then I see that this area back here behind the sphere is also pretty light. So I'm going to add some bleach in there. And again, I haven't re-dipped my brush or anything like that. And I'm thinking about bleach when I work with it a little bit like I would if I was using a pencil. In the sense of I'm careful with my lines. I'm kind of conscious about where I'm putting them down. But then I'm just letting all that bleach kind of come off my brush before I move on. So you can start to see how that looks like. So once again, I'm going to re-dip my brush again now. Same thing, wipe off a little bit of excess. And put down a second layer of bleach on that circle. Because I do want that to be really light and I don't want it to be confused with that area that I just put bleach down over here on this side. So right now I'm doing that. And again, there's less bleach on my brush now, which is good. So as I'm adding in some value at the top, it won't be as heavy. I'm going to come in and see if I have anything else on my brush down here. I do need that to get a little bit lighter, but I don't want it to be super, super bright. So I'm going to come down here, once again, into that background area. I'm just adding some bleach in. And I'm working around that shadow so I don't touch that shadow at all. And have that remain black. And because I'm working in with long brush strokes, and I'm trying to keep my bleach moving, you'll see that like there's not going to be puddles or anything else like that going on. So that's going to start to all bleach, and obviously as it's doing that, once I put that down, I'm going to kind of let that go. And then I'm going to come in to the top, and I'm going to work. Again, I'm going to add another little bit layer of bleach here so I can keep kind of lightening that up. And then I'm going to work over here to the side. And I'm working around that shadow. So right now, as you can start to see, my sphere is kind of beginning to take place. I have some shadows. My highlights are kind of starting to work together. Do want to fill that in, so I am going to add a little bit of bleach there. Looking at my picture. And to make sure I get all my values kind of going on in there. So again, with your practice, the biggest key as you're working with it is to just kind of, again, think about layering, think about putting in values, but then also thinking about just using the paintbrush as a pencil. And so if you think about it as you're drawing with it, and you get some lines to space out basically, then you will begin to have those values put in a way where it makes sense. So I'm going to add a little bit more here. And so as I'm working with that, right, now it's starting to look a little bit more like a sphere. If I look down here, I can actually still see that my paper is wet for my value scale, so I'm actually going to keep leaving that for now. But just as I have added about 4 or 5 layers here, again, they're drying fairly quickly, so I don't have to worry about, being super afraid. But you can see from this one that I do have, like, that area does look a lot lighter, right, compared to other places. So the more layers of bleach that you put down, the lighter an area will get. But it doesn't mean that necessarily, like, sometimes you do have to work quickly, sometimes you can work a little slow. And right now, while this is drying, I'm obviously going to stop for now until that's dry, until I see where it's at and if I need to add more to it. So again, hopefully this was pretty helpful for you in terms of using bleach with that practice. And again,